Hey everyone! Welcome to Anime Octopus. This is your go-to channel for anime fanfictions, where we dive into exciting what-if scenarios and reimagine our favorite stories in new and unexpected ways. Today's fanfic continues an intriguing journey. What if Kakashi raised Naruko? Part 2. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. This content is purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Alright, let's jump in. The next day, true to his word, the Hokage took Kakashi to see their new home. It had everything Kakashi and Naruko would need. The house was a two-story structure featuring a cozy living room, a kitchen with a breakfast nook, a study or playroom, and a bathroom. Toward the back, there was a laundry room with a door leading to the yard. The second floor had 3 bedrooms, one with a private bathroom, while the other 2 shared a separate bathroom. After finishing the tour, Kakashi and the Hokage stood on the back porch, discussing plans for the move. Once their conversation ended, they both went about their day, the Hokage returning to his office to handle important shinobi assignments, and Kakashi heading back to his apartment to start packing. Rei was there, keeping an eye on Naruko so Kakashi could focus on preparing for the transition. Only carefully selected shinobi, handpicked by the Hokage, were assigned to transport the necessary furniture. No civilians were involved to ensure security. Even among the chosen shinobi, the Hokage remained cautious. While they were loyal to him and fulfilled their duties professionally, he understood that not all of them were fond of Kakashi. They might tolerate him in the field, but that didn't mean they fully accepted him. With Naruko being a Jinchuriki, there was always a risk of hostility. To prevent any issues, the Hokage ordered that the move be completed by 2 p.m., ensuring that Kakashi and Naruko would not arrive until after everything was settled. If the shinobi involved realized exactly who was moving in, it could create unnecessary complications. By the time Kakashi arrived with Naruko securely strapped in a cloth carrier against his chest, it was already past 3. He carried a bag in each hand, filled with their belongings, while Rei walked beside him, also helping with a couple of bags. The journey to the house was uneventful, and upon arrival, they wasted no time getting inside. After setting their bags on the couch, Kakashi gave Rei a brief tour of the house before focusing on settling in. Rei let him know that she would return in 2 days and, if there was an emergency, he could send one of his ninken to fetch her. With that, she took her leave. Kakashi carried Naruko over to the couch to give her a bottle. The baby gazed up at him, her tiny hands gripping the fabric of his shirt. "Hey, little one. You can let go now," Kakashi said with a soft chuckle. Naruko clung to his shirt for a moment longer, only loosening her grip when Kakashi unstrapped the carrier and gently lifted her out. Even then, one tiny fist still grasped the material. Kakashi sighed playfully. "You won't be able to drink your bottle if you keep holding on. You're hungry, aren't you?" Naruko blinked at him, her bright smile fading as she released his shirt. Kakashi laughed, making her giggle in response. After cradling her in his arms, he retrieved the bottle from the table and placed it at her lips. She eagerly began drinking, occasionally reaching for his hand. Amused, Kakashi extended his pinky finger, which she managed to grasp after a few attempts. They remained like this until Naruko finished feeding. After gently patting her back to help her burp, Kakashi noticed her tiny yawn. She was already getting sleepy. Carrying her upstairs, he placed her in the bassinet beside his bed. Although Naruko had her own room, for now, Kakashi preferred to keep her close until she was a little older. Tucking her in with a soft blanket, he gently stroked her cheek. "Sweet dreams, Naruko," he whispered before turning his attention to unpacking their clothes and organizing the room. Once everything was put away, Kakashi decided to rest as well. Rei had advised him that he would need to adjust to Naruko's sleeping and eating schedule, but over time, she would settle into a routine. Stretching out across the bed, Kakashi closed his eyes and quickly drifted off to sleep, knowing that his new life with Naruko was just beginning. 4 figures stood poised on the sturdy branches of towering trees, their presence barely detectable in the fading light. 3 of them were clad entirely in black, their attire concealing their identities. Each bore a headband from a different hidden village, though a deep scratch marred the insignia, marking them as outcasts. Their flowing cloaks, adorned with red clouds, shifted slightly in the breeze. Positioned strategically in separate trees, they stood in a silent yet calculated formation. The 4th individual, clearly their leader, also wore black but distinguished himself with a suit of armor covering his chest and metal guards protecting his arms. Unlike his comrades, he did not conceal himself beneath a cloak. His commanding presence was evident as he gazed into the distance, his sharp eyes locked onto the approaching figures. Within moments, the awaited party arrived at the designated meeting point. Moving with practiced ease, the armored shinobi descended from his perch, landing smoothly before the newcomers. The arriving group also consisted of 4 individuals, yet they shared a singular allegiance. 3 of them bore the signature masks of the Anbu, their silver and black armor glinting in the dimming sunlight. Their leader, an older man, was a striking figure. Half of his face was wrapped in bandages, concealing his left eye, while his arm was similarly covered. He wore a loose white shirt paired with dark shinobi pants, all partially concealed by a draped robe that curiously left his left shoulder and arm exposed. "Danzo, it's been some time," the black-armored shinobi addressed the older man. "Indeed, Madara," Danzo responded with a knowing smirk. "You should have heeded my advice regarding the Kyuubi. I warned you that the 4th Hokage would quickly catch on to your actions. He may have been young, but he was far from foolish." Madara's expression darkened at the remark. He had little tolerance for reminders of past failures. "Regardless, at least that concern is no longer an issue." "You'll find no argument from me," Danzo replied, his tone turning serious. "Now, let's discuss the reason for this meeting. Are you prepared to accept the conditions I have set forth?" His gaze scrutinized Madara closely, searching for any sign of hesitation. "Yes. You seek my assistance in securing the title of Hokage, and we both agree that the Uchiha clan must be eliminated. Their unique abilities will become your asset, and in return," Danzo interjected, "I will provide your organization with resources and a foothold within Konoha. This will serve as your operational base while you pursue your greater ambitions. But make no mistake, Madara, once you have created your so-called world of peace, I intend to maintain control over Konoha." His expression was firm, leaving no room for doubt. "I have no objections to that," Madara replied. "Power is what we both seek, and I am more than willing to grant you Konoha in exchange for your cooperation." "Then we are in agreement. We must begin applying pressure on the Uchiha immediately. Why not eliminate the Hokage first? It would make our objective far simpler." "While that may be true, we must first take advantage of the unrest following the Kyuubi attack. We can shift the blame onto the Uchiha, given their unique ability to control the beast with their Sharingan." An effective strategy," Madara mused. "Though it will require patience to execute properly." "Yes, but that time will also allow us to fully prepare for the next phase of our plan. Trust me, Madara, the villagers are easily swayed under normal circumstances. But after suffering such losses and enduring hardship, they will be more vulnerable than ever to manipulation." A smirk tugged at Danzo's lips, and Madara mirrored the expression. "Very well," Madara agreed. "I doubt you will require our assistance in influencing the villagers, but do you need support elsewhere within the village?" "Yes. When the time comes, I will require your forces to assist my root division in subduing the Uchiha and enforcing martial law in Konoha. Until I have secured key positions within the village's leadership, your organization will play a crucial role in maintaining order, especially against any resistance from rogue shinobi or civilians unwilling to comply with my governance. Until then, continue your preparations and remain patient." "Understood. Keep us informed of your progress." "I will. For now, we should part ways. Expect a messenger from me every 3 weeks." With their agreement sealed, the 2 leaders shook hands before departing with their respective teams, each returning to their respective strongholds. Danzo and his operatives moved swiftly through the trees toward the Hidden Leaf village, maintaining a silent but steady pace. Each member was deep in thought, considering the weight of the alliance they had just formed. After more than 20 minutes of uninterrupted travel, the Anbu operative wearing a bird-shaped mask moved closer to Danzo, seeking clarification. "Lord Danzo, may I speak freely?" Danzo cast a glance at his subordinate and gave a slight nod. "Are you truly willing to allow Madara to achieve all that he desires? If he succeeds, it could jeopardize Konoha's future, and your own ambitions." "I am well aware of the risks, Bird. But rest assured, I have no intention of allowing that traitor to claim more than is necessary. Once he has served his purpose, I will ensure that his influence is permanently removed." "I see, sir. Then we will support you with our full strength." "I am counting on that, Bird." No further words were exchanged. The Anbu operative slipped back into formation, and the group continued their silent journey toward the village, each step drawing them closer to the unfolding future of Konoha. 6 months had passed since the secretive meeting between two men with ambitious and questionable intentions. During this time, the village had made significant progress in its recovery. The protective walls had been fully restored, and both eastern gates had been reconstructed. Civilian homes had been rebuilt, and the eastern shopping district was nearing completion. Only a few restaurants and specialty shops remained unfinished, though their wooden frameworks were already in place. However, while the village itself was physically healing, the emotional state of its residents was another matter. Rumors had begun circulating, suggesting that the esteemed Uchiha clan might have played a role in allowing the Kyuubi to attack. The origins of these rumors were unclear, and no one who had heard them had the courage to directly confront the Uchiha about it. Some dismissed the speculation as baseless, while others began to harbor doubts about the clan. Many villagers were still struggling with the pain and loss caused by the attack, and unfortunately, some sought an outlet for their frustration, directing it toward the so-called demon child. Kakashi had set out on a routine errand, needing to purchase ingredients for meals as well as formula and baby food for Naruko. Now 6 months old, she still required her bottle, but Rei had advised Kakashi that she could begin eating soft foods. With this in mind, Kakashi made his way toward the market to gather the necessary supplies. Before entering the village, Kakashi always used a transformation technique to alter his appearance. This time, he chose the disguise of a man with short, spiky brown hair, warm brown eyes, and lightly tanned skin devoid of any scars or distinguishing marks. His attire consisted of a short red yukata paired with dark gray full-length pants, an ordinary appearance that blended seamlessly with the crowds of the Hidden Leaf. With the transformation complete, Kakashi leapt down from the tree he had been perched in and casually made his way toward the village. Once inside, Kakashi moved through the bustling streets without drawing unwanted attention. As he browsed the market, he often overheard conversations that provided insight into the villagers' current sentiments regarding recent events. As he approached the produce stands, where local farmers gathered daily to sell their crops, he picked up snippets of discussion that caught his attention. The Uchiha are being moved outside of the village into their own district? Kakashi mused internally as he examined a selection of broccoli. If they are being relocated, it means they are under surveillance by the Anbu. That also suggests there may be some credibility to these rumors. But what is the actual truth? I find it hard to believe the Uchiha would be responsible for something like this, even if there were a motive. There has to be more to this than what is being said. Determined to find answers, Kakashi abandoned his shopping and turned toward the Hokage's tower. There was only one person he trusted to provide him with the truth. Upon arriving at the tower, Kakashi took a discreet approach, moving to the side of the building. Channeling chakra into his feet, he scaled the structure with ease. Reaching the desired height, he carefully made his way along the ledge until he arrived at a specific window. Peering inside, he confirmed that the office's occupant was alone. Without hesitation, Kakashi dispelled his transformation and prepared to knock on the glass, only to be interrupted by the voice of the Hokage. "Come in, Kakashi. I was expecting you," the Hokage said without looking up. Seated at his desk, he was absorbed in reading a scroll yet still fully aware of his surroundings. Kakashi did as instructed, stepping into the office and standing before the third Hokage's desk. Wasting no time, he got straight to the point. Hokage-sama, I've heard some concerning discussions in the village today. Oh? The third Hokage turned his chair to face Kakashi, setting the scroll down on his desk with a knowing expression. I believe I have an idea of what you're referring to, but please, go ahead, Kakashi. Yes, sir. Word around the village is that the Uchiha are being relocated to a separate district on the outskirts of Konoha. The Hokage nodded. That is correct. Though at this point, it is no longer just a rumor. The location has been designated, and all that remains is the construction of the compound where the Uchiha will reside. Kakashi furrowed his brow, concern evident in his tone. But why? Why is there a need to separate them from the rest of the village? A sense of unease lingered in his mind, something about this arrangement didn't sit right with him, though he couldn't quite articulate why. The Hokage sighed. There are those who have grown uneasy around the Uchiha. Some believe they played a role in the Nine-Tails attack by using their Sharingan. Kakashi's eyes widened in disbelief. That doesn't even make sense. Why would they endanger their own village? This is their home as much as it is anyone else's. The third Hokage offered a weary smile. I agree, Kakashi. It does not make sense to me either. However, for now, allowing them to have their own district is the best course of action. I have granted Fugaku Uchiha the authority to oversee the compound's construction, and they will be permitted to establish businesses within the district. Villagers will have the freedom to shop there as they would anywhere else in Konoha. Those who choose not to are under no obligation to do so. Kakashi remained skeptical. I see, but this situation may invite troublemakers who will try to take advantage of the division. The Hokage nodded. I am aware of that possibility. The Uchiha police force will maintain order within the district. Kakashi's tone turned somber. Yes. And the Anbu will be monitoring them as well. The Hokage's expression darkened slightly. That is also true. However, I will keep the number of Anbu stationed there to a minimum. Their role will be strictly observational, they are not to intervene unless absolutely necessary. Their primary task is surveillance, nothing more. Kakashi frowned. This decision. It was influenced by the council, wasn't it? The Hokage sighed again, leaning back in his chair. You are perceptive, Kakashi. Yes, the council played a role in this. I suspect there is more at work behind the scenes, but it has been difficult to uncover the full scope of it. I may need your assistance in the near future. A moment of silence passed before the Hokage's gaze softened. Speaking of which, how is young Naruko? She must be about 6 months old now, correct? Kakashi's expression shifted, his voice carrying warmth. Yes, sir. She is a lively and cheerful baby. I'm incredibly proud to be her older brother. Because of her, I've been pushing myself harder in my training. I want to ensure that nothing threatens her happiness. Unfortunately, there are still people in the village who speak of her unkindly, wondering where the demon child is being kept. Some even harbor harmful intentions toward her. The Hokage's face darkened with concern as Kakashi continued. These past few weeks, I've noticed an increase in rumors. Whenever I leave home for training or to buy supplies, I hear whispers about Naruko's whereabouts. I've been reinforcing the security around our home, setting up stronger defenses. Even my Ninken have been undergoing additional training. The Hokage folded his hands together. In time, the villagers will learn to tolerate Naruko's presence, if only because I will make it clear that such hostility will not be allowed. However, you must remain vigilant whenever you take her out. Kakashi nodded but remained troubled. It's not just the adults, Hokage-sama. What about the children her age? Eventually, she will have to join the academy. I don't want her to be ostracized or mistreated by her peers. The Hokage's gaze was resolute. I will issue a decree forbidding anyone from speaking about the Nine-Tails or its connection to Naruko. This will, I hope, allow her the opportunity to form friendships and build connections within the village. Kakashi exhaled, still uneasy. I truly hope that will be the case, Hokage-sama. His own childhood memories weighed heavily on him, Kakashi had never been able to form friendships with his peers, not after his father's reputation was ruined. Sakumo had been shunned by both villagers and shinobi alike, and because he was the White Fang's son, Kakashi had suffered the same treatment. Children mimicked the actions of their parents, and since the adults saw nothing wrong with criticizing Sakumo, their children saw no issue with doing the same to Kakashi. The pain of that isolation had driven Sakumo to his demise, leaving Kakashi alone and grieving. If not for Minato, he might have been lost to that sorrow as well. The Hokage's voice broke him from his thoughts. You should return to Naruko, Kakashi. I still have matters to attend to, but I will contact you when the time comes for your assistance with the Uchiha situation. Understood. Without another word, Kakashi disappeared out the window, seamlessly transforming into his disguised form before leaping across the rooftops. There was still one more task to complete, gathering food for his small but precious family. Rei gently tended to Naruko, carefully changing her diaper while lost in thought. For the past 2 weeks, her husband, Tomoya, had been urging her to stop visiting Kakashi's home, insisting it would be best for everyone involved. His sudden change in attitude puzzled her. In the beginning, Tomoya had been fully supportive of her efforts to help out. He had always loved children and was a devoted father to their own 3. She vividly recalled how strongly he had advocated for supporting Kakashi and Naruko. They are children of this village, he had said. Regardless of the circumstances, they need the guidance and care of the adults here. So why the sudden shift in perspective? Rei couldn't understand it. As she pondered the matter, she heard footsteps approaching the front porch. It seemed Naruko recognized them, too, as she instantly began making delighted sounds, waving her tiny arms and kicking her legs excitedly, just as she always did whenever Kakashi was near. Rei chuckled at the baby's enthusiasm, finishing up and lifting Naruko into her arms before heading to greet their visitor. Kakashi could hear Naruko's happy noises as he climbed the steps. A small smile tugged at his lips, she always seemed to know when he was coming. Without fail, she would get excited, reaching for him the moment she spotted him. Stepping inside, he saw Rei holding Naruko on her hip, the baby nestled securely against her side. Welcome home, Rei greeted with a warm smile. Thanks, Rei. Kakashi's gaze softened as he turned to Naruko. Hey there, were you a good girl for Rei today? Naruko eagerly nodded before stretching out both arms, eager to be held by Kakashi. Here, set your bags down first, then I'll pass her to you, Rei suggested. Thanks. Kakashi placed the bags on the floor before gently lifting Naruko into his arms. As soon as she was settled, she snuggled against his shoulder, content. Kakashi instinctively held her in the same way Rei had, ensuring she was safe and secure. Together, they made their way to the kitchen. Rei took it upon herself to put away the groceries while Kakashi sat at the table, shifting so Naruko could comfortably sit in his lap. It wasn't long before she became restless, trying to stand by using his shirt for support. Seeing her determination, Kakashi helped by holding her under her arms and lifting her into a standing position. Naruko immediately straightened her legs, balancing on his lap with newfound confidence. Hey, little one, what are you up to? Kakashi asked playfully, leaning in to touch his forehead against hers. Naruko giggled, reaching up with both hands to explore his face. The fabric of his mask intrigued her, and she curiously tugged at it, trying to pull it down. Kakashi gently intercepted her tiny hands, chuckling as he spoke patiently. Wait, Naruko. I'll take it off soon, I promise. He always removed his mask at home, and Naruko preferred it that way. She didn't like it when he hid his face. Satisfied for now, she wrapped her arms around his neck and rested her head on his shoulder. Rei turned back after finishing her task and smiled at the sight. She really is adorable. Yeah, she is, Kakashi agreed fondly, but his expression soon turned thoughtful. Rei, have you heard anything about Naruko around the village? Rei furrowed her brow, thinking back to recent conversations. Now that you mention it. No. I haven't heard anything in a while. That's unusual. I suppose people are too preoccupied with talking about the Uchiha situation to focus on anything else. Maybe, Kakashi murmured, still deep in thought. Anyway, thanks for watching Naruko for me, Rei. You know you're always welcome, she said warmly. Well, I should get going. You two will be all right for the night, right? We'll be fine. Have a good evening, Rei. With a final smile, Rei waved before heading out, leaving Kakashi and Naruko to enjoy their evening together. You too. And with that, Rei grabbed her messenger bag and headed for the door. As soon as she stepped outside and left the porch, Kakashi double-checked the door to ensure it was securely locked. True to his word, he pulled his mask down beneath his chin. Naruko's eyes lit up with excitement. She was finally able to see her big brother's face. She had never been a fan of peekaboo, after all. Over a day later, Rei returned, but something about her seemed different. Kakashi, who rarely let his guard down, felt a sense of unease. It had been a long time since he had felt the need to be cautious around her. While his concerns in the past had been unwarranted, today felt different. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He wasn't sure if it had anything to do with him and Naruko, or if Rei was dealing with personal struggles, perhaps something at home or even with a neighbor. Whatever it was, she was trying to mask it. Rei was smiling, but the expression didn't seem natural. Her words and actions were slightly exaggerated, as if she was trying too hard to appear cheerful. When Kakashi asked if something was wrong, she assured him it had nothing to do with him or Naruko. She explained that she had an argument with her husband over how their eldest child should begin training. The boy would soon be attending the academy, and her husband believed he should get a head start by learning some basic techniques. Rei, however, felt that their child should be able to enjoy playing for a little longer before dedicating so much time to studying and training. Her reasoning sounded logical, but Kakashi's instincts told him there was more to the story. Still, he decided to proceed with his original plan, training, but with a few adjustments. He would leave two of his ninken behind to keep watch over Rei and Naruko. I have a couple of dogs staying here, he informed her. They're not feeling their best, but don't worry, they're well trained and won't be any trouble. Rei didn't seem to mind, and with that, Kakashi left, staying within close range. Inside the house, Uhei and Guruko remained alert, carefully observing Rei without making it obvious. Kakashi had warned them that something might happen and instructed them to stay close to Naruko. Meanwhile, the rest of the pack stationed themselves outside, taking up positions around the perimeter to keep watch. For the first 30 minutes, nothing unusual occurred. But soon, the dogs outside sensed a disturbance, chakra signatures approaching, accompanied by unfamiliar scents. A group of men was headed straight for the house. Inside, Rei had just finished feeding Naruko and was preparing to lay her down for a nap on the couch. As soon as she placed the child down, she sensed the familiar chakra of her husband, along with many others. The dogs inside immediately became alert, the fur along their backs rising. At that moment, Naruko began to cry. What did you do? Uhei demanded, his voice sharp with suspicion. Nothing. I didn't do anything. Rei responded, her voice filled with panic. Outside, the sounds of a struggle erupted as the ninken engaged the approaching intruders. Realizing the danger, Rei instinctively reached for Naruko, intending to escape through the back of the house. But Guruko quickly blocked her path. You're not taking this child anywhere, traitor. The dog growled. No, you're wrong. Rei pleaded desperately. Kakashi's traps began triggering, ensnaring the intruders. Cries of surprise and struggle echoed from outside. Suddenly, the front door burst open, blown off its hinges, and Shinobi poured into the room. Without hesitation, Rei moved in front of Naruko, shielding her with her own body. She took a defensive stance, determination burning in her eyes. No one is going to harm this child. Her voice was firm, and her chakra flared around her. Among the intruders, a familiar voice spoke. Rei, please don't do this. It was Tomoya, now standing at the front of the group, his expression filled with urgency. Can't you see? This is for the best. If we allow this child to stay, It will only bring harm to all of us. You have no right to speak, Tomoya. What happened to these children need the support of the adults in this village? Rei's voice trembled with frustration as she confronted her husband. She felt a deep sense of disappointment and regret. She had never expected things to escalate this far, and now that they had, she couldn't forgive herself for allowing it to happen. Please, Rei, try to understand, Tomoya pleaded, stepping toward her in an attempt to calm the situation. While Rei was momentarily distracted, two more ninja quietly entered from the back of the house. Without hesitation, Naruko and Uhei sprang into action to intercept them. Meanwhile, Tomoya moved toward his wife, and as the confrontation unfolded, three other individuals swiftly reached Naruko, seizing her and rushing out the door. Rei barely had a moment to react before her husband and the remaining three intruders turned their focus on her. Kakashi was refining his Chidori technique when Pakun suddenly appeared. One look at the small summon, and Kakashi took off without hesitation. He was only half a mile from home and covered the distance in an instant. Uhei emerged from the doorway, his fur matted with signs of a struggle. The loyal hound quickly called out, urging Kakashi to head for Training Ground 5 immediately. Without breaking stride, Kakashi adjusted course, Pakun right beside him. A single glance between them was all it took. Pakun understood his role and immediately split off, racing toward the Hokage Tower. Kakashi pushed himself to move even faster, his determination reaching new heights. The very air around him crackled with his intensity. Meanwhile, a group of civilians had gathered, eagerly anticipating what they believed would be a long-awaited moment. They had conspired to bring the so-called demon child to a secluded location where they could witness the child's fate firsthand. Their misguided thirst for vengeance had led them to hire rogue shinobi for the task, believing they were finally settling a score from months ago. The crowd parted as a man named Genbu Satoshi made his way to the front. Many clapped him on the back, offering words of encouragement. Once he stood before the gathered civilians, he lifted a small child into the air by the leg, Naruko, dangling helplessly, crying in fear. The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices rising in a chilling chant. End it now. Rid the village of the monster. Genbu smirked as he reached into his weapons pouch, drawing a kunai. He raised it, preparing to fulfill the crowd's demand. Kakashi could hear the chanting before he even reached the clearing. As the words became clearer, his resolve solidified. He wouldn't allow this. His eyes locked onto Naruko, helpless in the grasp of the rogue ninja. There was no time to waste. Kakashi moved swiftly, adjusting his approach as Uhei and the other ninkin flanked from the left. Timing was everything. With a burst of chakra, he propelled himself above the crowd. At the same moment, Genbu pulled back his arm, ready to strike. But before he could act, a kunai embedded itself between his eyes, freezing his expression in shock. As he collapsed backward, his grip on Naruko loosened. Uhei leapt into action, catching the child before she could hit the ground. In the next instant, Anbu operatives arrived, swiftly working to regain control of the situation. Kakashi, still in motion, hurled several shuriken at the civilians inciting the chaos. However, before they could land, an Anbu wearing a tiger-patterned mask intercepted, deflecting the weapons away. He swiftly moved to Kakashi's side, grasping his arm firmly. Calm yourself, Kakashi, Tiger spoke in a measured, soothing tone. The Hokage is on his way. You don't want him to witness you acting out of anger. It won't help Naruko if you end up facing consequences yourself. Kakashi clenched his fists, his breathing still heavy. He knew Tiger was right. If he lost control now, the village elders might use this as an opportunity to separate him from Naruko. Worse, if Danzo got involved, the child could end up as nothing more than a tool for war. No. He had to stay composed. For Naruko's sake. Taking a deep breath, Kakashi gave a reluctant nod to Tiger. Uhei trotted over, Naruko still held gently by her shirt, her tiny form trembling. Kakashi immediately knelt down, carefully taking her into his arms. She clung to him instantly, small hands gripping his vest. He murmured soft reassurances, his voice gentle as he rocked her in his arms. Slowly, her cries softened, though she remained shaken. Kakashi carefully examined her, relieved to find no visible injuries. Though physically unharmed, the ordeal had clearly left her terrified. Guilt settled in his chest. He should have been there sooner. He turned to his Ninken and signaled for them to return home, promising to tend to them later. Soon after, the Hokage arrived, swiftly ordering the arrest of all those involved. The civilians were dismissed for the time being, but once interrogations concluded, those responsible would be held accountable. Kakashi, still holding Naruko close, turned to leave. He had seen enough. His only concern now was getting her somewhere safe. However, the Hokage called out to him. Kakashi hesitated for a moment before approaching as requested. Kakashi, the Hokage began, his voice firm yet understanding, the shinobi responsible for attacking your home have all been apprehended. Your house is intact, though the door needed immediate repairs. We've recovered everything. Kakashi absorbed the words, nodding slightly before speaking. And Rei? He asked, unable to help the concern in his voice. She was severely injured during the attack. Her husband was gone. Kakashi remained silent, there was nothing he could say. Frustration simmered within him as he thought about the villagers. They claimed to respect the fourth Hokage, yet their actions told a different story. They had no idea that Naruko was his child, but to Kakashi, that didn't change anything. Attempting to harm an innocent child was an act of cowardice, no matter how they tried to justify it. His thoughts drifted to Rei. She had only come to assist him and had done nothing wrong. Kakashi couldn't shake the guilt he felt, even though none of this was his fault. It had been her husband's choice to betray her and the rest of them. But there was nothing that could change what had happened. Right now, his only concern was getting Naruko home safely. She needed to know she was safe, that was what truly mattered. With that thought, Kakashi vanished from the training grounds in a blur of movement, heading toward the outskirts of the village. As he walked home, countless thoughts swirled through his mind. Dear YouTube family. That's all for now. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more exciting content. Thank you for your support. Best regards. Anime Octopus.